All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Serendipity College Esports Forum stream today. I'm BJ Fink, the host here and co-founder with Serendipity Gaming. And I'm here with Brendan Hall, the esports coordinator over at Endicott College. And we've been connected for a little while here, but we've had some great conversations just back and forth about esports, about students, just about anything more recently, just now about John Cena and,
And the Kowloon. Yes,
and
sir.
there you go. But yeah, just really wanted Brendan to come on today because, as I've talked with hundreds of directors and coaches over the year, there's been kind of maybe a disconnect in programs being able to connect with either audiences or even students on campus and different things like that. And storytelling is such a big part of what you do with that and connecting with those people. And Brendan has such a passion for storytelling, right, in marketing and how that kind of transcends everything. But especially here for esports. And of course, he instills that in his students and whatnot. But Brendan, welcome. Go ahead, just give everybody a brief background of what you're doing now and a little bit about what got you into esports, I guess, in the first place.
Cool. So I'm the esports coordinator here at Endicott College. We're about 20 miles north of Boston, in a beautiful little town called Beverly, Massachusetts. We have 3 beaches across from campus, believe it or not, and they're beautiful. But I'm going on year 2 here. I joined 2 summers ago. We've had esports management curriculum here since 2018. We're one of a handful of colleges across Massachusetts offering an esports management major. A big goal for us, a big goal for the college is more focused on job placement. We have a pretty robust sport management program here. We have a lot of alums work for the Celtics, New Balance, the Patriots, et cetera, and a really good nursing program here as well, which also exercise science. We have a really good alumni network of athletic trainers across the country. And so that's kind of how we're building here with esports is job placement. I had a few of my students work for you this summer, BJ. And also, but we're really kind of, as far as the competitive side, it's kind of been a ground up process. The spring was our first competitive season in school history. Our Overwatch team, we did pretty well. We had our captain was ECAC Player of the Month. We made a round of 16 in playoffs. We took the number 1 seed to their first map 5 of the season. So we had a lot to build on. But we just opened our esports lab. The PCs haven't actually been installed yet, but the traffic there is already nuts. So these guys were pretty much doing it bare bones, lugging their PCs from home, and just a bunch of dorm buddies having a blast, and they just haven't even ranked pretty high in Overwatch. But so I think in year 2 here, now that the center's opening, we're expecting a lot of traffic coming in, a lot of casual gaming already, especially with the female student body. Believe it or not, a lot of interest from them as well. So I'm sorry, I kind of ramble a little bit, but my journey, I guess, into here. So I'll back up a little bit. So I came, from the sports media side. I happened to grow up at a magical time in Boston sports, where you get some just wonderful sports writing being done every day, and I wanted to be the next great Boston sports writer. I did pretty well at it for a long time. I covered the Bruins for the Boston Globe. I covered a number of, I covered 2 Stanley Cups for ESPN.com.
What was your favorite sport to cover?
Oh boy. So I'm a football guy through and through. I watch the NFL. I binge watch college, but to me, there's nothing better than covering live hockey. And I would say of the 4 locker rooms in the pro sports here in Boston, I'd say the Bruins is by far the friendliest. And not that the others aren't. It's just that you really see that real Canadian hospitality with the players, and how intimate they're willing to be with you when it comes to storytelling. So that's probably my favorite one to cover. The fans are pretty into it. The Garden's a pretty magical place when it fills up and it gets loud. And hockey just as a sport, watching live, I don't think there's anything better. So, so I came from a unique spot where I was commissioned by the Craft Sports Group to build a high school sports vertical for ESPN Boston. And you know, what's unique about, I think, high school sports in this area, you know, recruiting wise for football, we can't compare. We're probably one of the least fertile areas in the country. But I always say, difference between us and Texas, right? I think like Kyler Murray, his senior year of high school, I think he had 28 teammates signed Division I scholarships. We're lucky to get a dozen.
Yeah.
Right. But difference between us and them, right? I live in Framingham. We hate Natick, home of Doug Flutie, which hates Walpole, which hates Foxborough, which hates Mansfield, which hates Franklin, which hates Milford, and on and on and on. The tribalism from town board to town board, people are very, very proud of the little town they grew up in. And the kind of the fabric, the role that sports plays in that town's cultural fabric. That's always the difference between us and everybody else, is just how fiercely proud we are of our little plot of land. And I really, leaned into that as opposed to recruiting, which high school tends to be recruiting, and it exploded. We had more daily traffic than ESPN's Celtics and Bruins coverage combined.
Yeah.
Which is insane. But it taught me a lot of lessons about marketing and brand building and doing things from the ground up, that I kind of fell in love with the art and science of marketing. I was a writer and editor by nature, but I really was also, working with sponsors on content campaigns, willing to every now and then put on my street team hat, out activating at games. And so if I had an opportunity to get into marketing, whether it was sports, esports, or a plumbing supply company, I was gonna go for it, because I just, again, the art and science of it is just, I fell in love with it. And as I went, and we, the role that storytelling has in that as well, and how well my storytelling skills in journalism translated into marketing. So I had an opportunity before COVID to hitch a ride with a company called Huddle. I don't know if who here is familiar with that. It's a SaaS platform essentially, but for hosting game film for purpose of video analysis that 99% of football programs in North America use. It's also the analysis tool of choice for Premier League soccer, Borussia Dortmund, a couple other big names out there. Thanks, Luke. Oh, Luke was one of my first. Luke was one of my first proteges at ESPN Boston. He's done tremendously well for himself. He's currently a producer for all the Smoke podcast with Steven Jackson, killing it out there. But at Huddle, so I did a lot of football marketing. We ran some very successful webinars that I led. We had Deion Sanders keynote one time. We had nice. John Gruden, John Harbaugh another time. It was awesome. I kind of, catching a few years with a great mentor of mine, J.J. Alberts, from my time with the Patriots, who had he had seen the growth of college esports from where he was at Dean, and we had an opportunity to hitch a ride, selling partnerships for a startup esports org, Oxygen Esports, and they were looking for us to hire some more marketers. I think when they looked at me, I think they initially saw a social media manager, but after they heard my whole thing of what I do, they kind of created a new job for me.
Right, maybe you should explain the difference now, because there's a lot of people out there, especially in the university world. There's literally like forums dedicated to university social media managers saying that is not my job. What's the difference between social media managing and marketing, and like those kind of roles? Because they seem to, people cross them a lot these days.
Gee, that's a great question. I may flip flop on this answer 100 times after the webinar is over, but I don't know if there's much of a difference, honestly, because I mean, okay, I give a great example. About a year or two ago when I was bartending, my first shift, I'll never forget this. There was a waitress sitting at the bar having a post shift drink, and she's just staring at her phone. Yeah. And after about half hour, she gets up and goes, "I'm going to go home and watch TikTok." Now, 10 years ago, BJ, what do you think she's saying?
Just,
probably like, I'm going to go home and watch Jersey Shore. I'm going to go home and
yeah,
honestly
right.
flip through the TV. So people don't do that anymore. Social media is, I mean, my wife's done scrolling every night on the couch. Like
Yeah,
it's kind of replaced that in a lot of ways, I think. And so it's kind of a interwoven now. Now, if you're talking about just um, making sure the table's set and making sure all the projects stay on task, and that is a really underrated, underappreciated part of the job. This is a lot of work, and I don't
yeah.
think people appreciate that enough. This is a lot of work,
And
and
a lot of universities, for perspective, like even my wife did this, right? She was the director of communications and marketing and things. And, you're expected to run, hey, we need this to go to print. And we need this, for this brochure and this and that. But also, did you check every single one of our social media accounts and make sure the posts are lined up? And you're like, well, I can't be, in charge of all this other marketing and 100% manage your social accounts. And I think there's kind of a mix up in a lot of institutions about how that can be done.
yeah, and I think, and so social media, because I think you particularly do a phenomenal job with this, BJ. But kind of
Thank you.
in social media, but just kind of actively in that mindset of when you're posting your awesome stuff on LinkedIn, BJ, like, you're not thinking of it as, oh, I'm a social media manager. No, you this is your vehicle for thought leadership. This is your vehicle for
Yeah.
expertise. And so so to me, I think it depends if you're doing behind the scenes stuff, if you are project management, if you are reporting on analytics, that's its own job. But this whole idea of it's just something that's got to be natural, how we're wired, because I've seen it be such a tremendous vehicle for establishing yourself as a thought leader, as an expert in the field. Even going back to ESPN Boston, right? Believe it or not, there was a time in society where this idea of Twitter was kind of a novice, kind of like a almost thought of as like a gimmicky kind of concept.
Yeah.
And we decided we were going to be progressive. When I say we, me and my partner Scott Barboza, we decided we were just going to be proactive with this medium, and we were just going to crush it. And we were just going to be everywhere, as we could be, giving live, and people just loved it. And just a little bit of bantering I had with fans, as Luke would probably attest. Like, there were times when like fans would show up with like cutoffs of my face, like, we hated it, you picked against us this week, we're going to give you shit all game. So it was, and you just lean into it a little bit, be a bad guy pro wrestling villain, and they freaking love you for it. This job's so much fun. But no, but like, there's just going to be something natural to you. I hope that answers the question. But
no, it does, and I think that's kind of you can be a good content creator, but maybe not good at scheduling your content or managing certain things, right?
Yeah,
Vice
guilty
versa,
as charged.
right?
Guilty as freaking charged. Okay, so
I think that's good. It's good to understand, right? Just because you're naturally good at content creation doesn't mean you're going to be good at maybe marketing and timelines and project management side of things, and vice versa. And I think that's a big thing. And then of course, when it comes to esports, we're wearing 15 different hats, but maybe we'll get back on track and back to your journey a little bit. So you were doing the huddle thing, and
and so my challenge to Oxygen was that was they were focused on social media, and I had seen a lot of success at Huddle with newsletters and email marketing, and what a vehicle that was for sunshining Huddle users who were leveraging our products in a unique way that can educate others on how to use the products. It was tremendous. We had really good attribution software in Salesforce that could connect that to somewhere in the ballpark of 100K in close one revenue in a fiscal year. And that was going up 250,000 coaches a month. It was so that was a real epiphany for me. Like, and it's an example I bring up all the time. Like, BJ, you're in Virginia. What pro sports teams do you follow?
In Virginia, well, of course, so I've been in Virginia 2 years, and there's a lot of debate on why Virginia doesn't have pro sports teams and things like that. But I'm a big soccer guy, so I grew up playing soccer, and of course, in the United States, it's just now starting to really take off. The MLS is getting bigger and things like that. But I followed Premier League like my whole life, so I'm an Arsenal fan.
Oh goodness, I'm a Chelsea guy. I'm ending this call right now. Sorry, I'm out of here.
Okay, hey, at least none of us are for the Spurs.
Okay, so when's the last time you went to ESPN.com to check up on Arsenal, see the latest score or whatever?
Yeah, so I mean, my gosh, I was gonna say, do I use ESPN? I use that. I have the Premier League app on my phone, and I check it probably a couple times a week, at least for stories and news and things like that.
Yeah. When's the last time you checked your inbox?
My inbox, like within the last 5 minutes, probably 5
There you
times.
go. So that's the new homepage, guys. Like, right.
Right.
You hit them at the right time of day. It can be really impactful. But yeah, so and if you a newsletter can be a really intimate experience, can feel really personal. Can feel like especially if because you do a great newsletter when you write for Radical.
Yeah.
I especially your one you had about a while back about through the casino, that whole concept. Yeah, dude. That and so when that lands in my inbox, that to me is like, oh, okay, I'm learning something today. Then I can go. Then I go out and teach, or then I go out and have meetings, and so that I what it does for building trust in your brand is I've seen it be invaluable. So that's kind of what I challenge them on, and they bought in, and within a month of getting their CRM up and running, it was one of the most valuable channels for lead gen. So,
Yeah.
as far as academia, when I want to get in, truthfully, I had always wanted to get into academia at some point in my career. I kind of thought this was something I'd love to do. I'm sad to say I haven't written any books yet, and I feel like I need to get on the ball about that. But I thought this would be a good space for being able to kind of sharpen my whole philosophy and start publishing some books and writing more. So this is always something I didn't expect to jump in this early in my career in it, but college is a tremendous space to be in right now for esports because the community is tremendous. I mean, we don't even have our PCs installed here yet. We're jury-rigging PS5s together when our Rocket League team goes live, and we took one on the chin last night. But like already, I can't get this is the only place, my little office here is the only place I can get work done. Like every 5 minutes, someone walking in. Oh my God! Hey, you got this, you got that. Hey, can you? It's the interest is already through the roof here, but also like for colleges, this is going to recruit better STEM students, right? I think it was Esports Foundry or somewhere, but said that like 65% of college students who participate in their esports program are on a STEM or STEM adjacent degree track. So this is going to get a better profile student. I mean, most of our Overwatch players are computer science or something similar. So for them, it makes sense to buy in more. I think I think people don't realize how much work opportunities there are in this field,
Right.
and also from the standpoint of how to build your own brand, how to make yourself stand out, because the creator economy is so imperative. That's one thing that esports has been way ahead of the curve on. Like when you watch the Manning cast, is that not a Twitch co-stream that people were doing 10 years ago?
Yeah.
Right. So I think there's a lot that other areas of sports and sports marketing can learn from esports in that way in particular, with the influence. So teaching kids how to brand themselves and how to.
Right. And we almost flipped it, right? Traditional sports have a lot to learn on content creation and things from the esports side, and esports has a lot to learn on the structural side from traditional. They kind of did content first and then built the sport after.
Yeah, we had an intern at Huddle who on like when he wasn't doing stuff for Huddle was like a semi-pro Call of Duty sniper and did a lot of content around that and worked on his own brand. He parlayed that into a job working at NC State, and like part of the reason they hired him was they were impressed with how he was able to like grow his own brand, and there's something that like traditional workplaces can learn from that. So. This stuff really does translate. It really does.
Yeah, I spend a lot of time trying to convince people that they're like, don't get this esports degree or, do this. And I'm like, well, like you're learning sport management, you're learning business management, and then you're also taking classes on esport. I think there's a big misconception on like that everything about an esports degree is centered on like the video games and the esports aspect. And they're like, you're better off getting a marketing degree. You're better off just getting a business administration degree. And I think there's a lot of misconception about the actual coursework and the studies
Yeah.
that people are doing in these degrees.
Yeah. I mean, you were an archaeology major in college, weren't you?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay. I was a journalism major in college. I I've kind of come around on this, uh, like okay, the last GM of the Red Sox, not the current one, Kyle Bloom. He was a classics major at Yale. Like, I
yeah.
think it's okay to major in this stuff because I think there's something unique you can learn from these things that you can apply elsewhere. Like, okay, probably one of the greatest innovators of our time, Steve Jobs. He always said if it wasn't for that semester majoring in calligraphy at Reed College in Oregon,
Right.
he would never have invented the Mac. So
It's a big thing. I mean, 33% of like CEOs in America have humanities degrees. They're not business degrees. And you learn
yeah,
research, you learn context, you learn all these types of skills that
yeah,
transcend disciplines.
yeah. I mean, when I'm building a team, and I'm sure you feel the same way. Like, I want challengers. Because every right answer is eventually the wrong one. So someone from a background that's kind of atypical
Mm-hmm.
um, can probably challenge me on a couple things here or there that helps us keep moving things forward. So I look. I went to UMass Amherst. They have a tremendous sport management program, one of the best in the country. A good chunk of my friends that were in that program, they don't do sport management anymore.
Mm.
So it's all relative. I think do what you think is going to allow you to make the most discoveries about yourself and make you so stand out.
And hey, doing that makes for a really interesting story, and that's what it's all about,
Yeah.
right?
Nice transition.
There you go. There you go. But you know what? Why don't we go ahead if you want to pull up your slides? We'll
Yeah,
kind of
let's do
dive
it.
into it
Let's do
and kind
this.
of understand more about storytelling as we come into esports. And these coaches are trying to maybe talk to the kids about degrees or talk to people about
Yeah,
the programs and like what's the storytelling art behind all this.
cool. Yeah, so this deck is parts of it are from parts of what you'll see are stuff that I taught. I see Noah McAllister is on the call here. He was a very excellent student in my esports marketing class back in the spring. Other
There
stuff
you
is
go.
spliced from my presentation at NACE this summer. Don't get caught in the Orlando airport when you're a pale-skinned Irish kid and Microsoft shuts down half the country. That was
Right.
an adventure. Um, anyways, but yeah, so I'll start this off. So the focus here today is going to be on storytelling and what makes for good storytelling and how to present to tell better stories about what you're doing in your program. So a little about me. I kind of went over a lot of the details of what I did, but this is just an about me page. I hope we don't have any Seattle Seahawks fans on the call here because that's my Super Bowl ring from Super Bowl 49. Thank you. I don't know whether to thank Daryl Bevel or Russell Wilson for that play, but it got me a cool thing. And my wife is probably going to watch the replay. So, Carolyn, this is the second best ring I have in my arsenal. Don't worry. Some of
I
my
can't
favorite
get my wife
titles.
to watch any of my replays.
Oh no, she's my toughest critic. Believe me, she's she. God bless her. Some of my favorite titles. This is a question I pose as an icebreaker in my class a lot at the beginning, where I say, "What is the first title you fell in love with?" And for me, it's always Sonic the Hedgehog 2. Playing with my sister who was pretending to be Tails the whole time. I'm not even kidding. Like we'll get it's like when my sister will call me and she's 35 with 4 kids and she will call me and start humming the Chemical Plant Zone 2 music and we just crack the hell up. It's hilarious. But that's the kind of relationship that lasts a lifetime, right? Super Smash Bros. Something else I grew up on the 64. And we have seen a lot of buzz here with Fortnite and Rocket League, and I find them insanely fun to play. Just a little bit about Endicott. Again, we are we're a Division III college on the North Shore. We compete very well in athletics. We've made the last 2 College World Series. We're preseason number 18 in football. We have hockey players here with NHL draft rights, and so we've like I said, we have got a gaming center, esports lab opening very, very shortly. I've gone over some of the stuff we did back in the spring with our Overwatch team. That was a huge watershed moment for us. That was a huge step forward. We've got some accomplished faculty here. One of my colleagues, Dr. Gina Gentili, she's written textbooks about esports management. But yeah, so that's kind of like how we view things. We are curriculum first, and that's where a lot of our philosophy stems from. Influences. I always like to put this slide up. I think having influences, a steady stream of them outside of the industry helps you find that next curve of innovation we talk about. I also think it helps you defend your own ideas. When you change the context or give it new context, it kind of helps you really defend some of the weak arguments against your ideas. And I think you'll find that the best in any field, sports especially, esports, like the best thinkers they're almost always the ones who are willing to take outside influence. The best example from recently is our world champion Boston Celtics Joe Mazzulla, one of the youngest coaches ever to win a finals. He would routinely show his players UFC fights to show them how having an even temperament, remaining calm under pressure, would allow these fighters to escape from what seemed like insurmountable holds in the octagon. And so he would teach a lesson there about remaining calm when stuff gets chaotic out there.
And I think honestly on those kind of notes,
yeah,
there's so many times with players that I had, right? I would tell them, hey, why do you play this way, right? I just would ask them, knowing what they're probably going to tell me, and they would say it almost every time. Well, that's how the pros do it. And you're like, okay. All these players are understanding is how to play like the professional players do. They don't have their own play identities, their own, forms of doing things. They just, it's so much about this technical proficiency. There's nothing additional into it. So I think for esports and even on the business side, right, every esports org tried to silo themselves and hold on to their little piece of the pie without looking outside and getting perspective. And I think esports very much so needs this type of look for influences outside your sector, as a mantra.
Yeah. So if you've probably heard of some of these guys, I mean, if you're in marketing and you're not following Seth Godin's newsletter, you're missing out. He is like the Michael Jordan of power with brevity, and waking up every morning to wisdom from him in your inbox, it really gets my day going. This guy way left, Dave Gerhardt, he comes from a very technical side of things in what's called B2B or business to business marketing. And, that's at Huddle. That's kind of how I was baptized into marketing, was that B2B side. And I just think that's a really good foundation that translates well to any other area of marketing, because B2B tends to be relationship intensive, right? And it's more account based than just throwing up a billboard. And so relationships are everything in this business, right? So I just think that stuff translates really well. So a lot of that relationship strategy, it's good stuff to have. I'll just go to the next slide. You're going to laugh, please don't, or actually do. But so you're probably thinking, oh my God, did this guy just really name his own manifesto and put it out there? Yeah. So this is.
But you've got the experience to do so. Some people put it out there at 22, like they've run the world already.
Yeah, maybe Noah can chime in here. I put these rules up back in my classes over the last couple semesters, and as this last semester went, the students just kept calling it the B Hall Manifesto, and I just said, you know what, I'm going to stop being modest and start just putting my stamp on this stuff. So, but I have 6 rules I live by, and the one we're going to focus on here today is number 3. But just kind of go through it. Brand makes demand. Community makes commerce. Story is supreme. I used to say story is king, but I want to be more gender inclusive. So story is supreme. Don't spray and pray, point and shoot. Sell immersions, not impressions. Sell visions, not delusions. And there's with those last 2 points, there's a big difference that I think people underappreciate. But so for this particular, we're going to focus on story and why that is the rule of supreme.
See, the manifesto is out there. It's out there.
Yes, sir. So storytelling, and here's another saying I came up with. Feel free to use this one, but if you don't move the heart before you move the wallet, then you're just a thief. And frankly, I think we see a lot of thieves out there
Well, I mean, honestly, they didn't like half the esports market. Basically, they just have been called a thief, right? Because they haven't paid tournament
Oh
winnings and
my
all this
goodness,
stuff,
that's
right?
ridiculous.
Like you haven't
Yeah,
even moved anything,
yeah, they literally are in some case
right?
by the definition. But yeah, I'm talking obviously in like what's the why am I I don't know hypotheticals. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Metaphor. Sorry. Why did that slip on me? I don't know.
Because it's a work week. That's why.
It is.
That's
I've been back to back all morning. I was just got an intense meeting with our teaching and AI committee. So, anyways, so why story? And story, you need story to remind you why you fell in love with the product in the first place. And a good storytelling should deepen that relationship you have with the product and in theory take them down the funnel. I think you and I know what we talk about what we mean when we say funnel, right? You have the awareness stage,
yeah.
consideration, decision, retention, right? Um,
And
you know,
maybe that's step number one for a lot of coaches. You need to actually sit down
yeah,
and create what your funnel is.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I bring up this arcane show. My students love this show. Um, and I think this is a really good strategy by Riot Games building backstories. Right, League of Legends is a massive library of characters. Right, to bring some backstories into these characters deepens that relationship someone might have with a character that they main with. Right, and so um, and so you take them down the funnel, and the way you do it, right, emotional engagement, make them emotionally invested. It should feel like a shared experience, something that you can identify with, relatable, accessible, right? But that's why you invest in story, and also story. Frankly, it's an entry point for a lot of new fans in gaming. I love that NRG does this where they sunshine a lot of their monthly they sunshine a lot of their data on they collect on fans into monthly infographics. And frankly, I think more orgs should be doing this. I'll go back to Huddle where I published a number of white papers where we gathered the data of the tendency data in our system, and I would hand it off to a third party influencer analyst, who would then you know point out what stuck out to him and offer some strategies for getting on the right side of these tendencies. And every time that would do 100K in revenue. This stuff really does work. It builds a lot of trust in what you're trying to do. But anyways, no. So NRG put up this infographic a while back that 40% of new League of Legends fans in the last 2 years, their first exposure was through media, like Arcane, for instance. And so giving them these backstories in Arcane, that strengthens their relationship with their favorite characters and keeps them around long term. Ensures the long term loyalty. But this stuff really is an entry point more than we might think. Some characteristics of great esports storytelling. Give them a slice of life behind the scenes. I'll bring up the Celtics again. I think they were smart to get ahead of the curve on this, but the Celtics are such a massive brand worldwide. 99% of Celtics fans, again, we're talking world over, they're never going to see a game at TD Garden. So the more that they can capture behind the scenes footage or any sort of content that builds a relationship, like anything you can capture from Tatum, from Brown, etc., is going to strengthen the relationship someone halfway across the world might have with the Celtics brand and what that does to drive everything else. Merch sales, for instance, it's huge. So I think they were really ahead of the curve on that. But that's why that'll go a long way. I think with esports fans, they're everywhere. You follow. Think about your favorite streamers you follow. Do you follow them because they're from a certain area, or just because you like their content? And so, I feel like more you can capture behind the scenes can go a long way to that.
Right. I say it all the time. I tell people,
Yeah,
like, what's one of the, they're like, who's your favorite player? Honestly, I couldn't tell you because I don't have one in esports. The main reason, it doesn't matter. I don't want to build a relationship if they're not going to be there next year. Like, I
Yeah.
don't want to put that investment in because there's no story to get attached to. And if I get attached, it's just going to get ripped next year. And so you got to build those relationships with your audience.
That's a problem, honestly. I mean, as I'm watching Deshaun Watson throw a dud of a game on Sunday, he's the 38th different starting quarterback the Browns have had since they returned to Cleveland in '99. Can you imagine that? Over the same time in Foxborough, where we're on like number 4 over that same amount of time. One of these orgs won 6 Super Bowls. The other, until very recently, was the laughing stock of the NFL for a long time.
Right.
So, constantly changing, constantly, constant movement, that breeds chaos. People want to see consistency. I'll dig in the NFL again. Here's a trivia question for you, BJ. How many head coaches have the Steelers had since 1969?
I don't know if I know that one, but I'd guess maybe
3.
Oh, I was going to say it's less than 10, I felt like.
Can you believe that? 3 head coaches.
3 is actually
and it's like every single year they are in the hunt. Mike Tomlin has never had a losing season. Bill Belichick has had losing seasons. Mike Tomlin has never had a losing season. Okay. Yeah. There's something cultural. There's some consistency breeds culture, right?
Do you think in esports?
Yeah. Like Call of Duty, it's these guys got to figure out the roster change, like the roster mania stuff. We need to have consider 2-year deals, multi-year deals, more investment in academies.
Mm-hmm. The whole pipeline, right? Esports doesn't even have its own proper funnel. Do you think separate from, right? Part of the problem is with the publishers and the games, they update them or they change or a game might fall away. Do you see a way forward with esports and telling that story with the games themselves also changing so drastically?
Yeah, I know. It's a great question. I don't know. I also think this is going to go off on a tangent. There comes a point in character development where the idea of it becomes bigger than the creator itself. Have you ever? Are you a fan of Fight Club, the book or the movie?
It was my wife's favorite movie for the longest time. So it's
yeah. Okay. So like the idea of Tyler Durden, right? And this like anti-hero, this symbol of anti-establishment, this symbol of like the rebel within us, right? So I don't know if you follow. So he's done 2. Chuck Palahniuk, the author, he's done 2 sequels in graphic novel form. And Fight Club 2, not to spoil it for you, but about halfway through the comic, they go fourth wall, and it chucks in the writer's room, and all the writers are having a fight about what they should do. And then they have this kind of Deus Ex Machina ending with Tyler trying to blow up the world, and all the people from Portland, Oregon come protest outside of his house. We wanted to do this. We wanted to do that. And it comes to kind of a point of like, okay, this idea of Tyler Durden is now bigger than Chuck itself, and what the relationship people have with this Tyler Durden character. It's a really interesting musing on this, but like there comes a point in these characters where it becomes bigger than the creators themselves, and it's just the idea that lives on. I think it's kind of a cool thing.
Well, and Titus, so shout out to Titus Walker. I talked with him the other day, right? And we're talking about this idea of, these players invest so heavily in one game. But how, what if you stop maybe doing that? And this player was, if maybe they play Call of Duty, but they're also playing Rainbow Six and, other first person shooters. And so they're more of a genre player instead of just a single game player. And does that expand the community, tell a better story, and even, add some longevity to a player's career at this?
Yeah. And the comment here about Stewie 2K going from pro scrims to Cloud9 to winning a major. I mean, that's a life-changing journey. Why not go back to where it all started? One of the things I used to love that Patriots writers would do around here is whatever first round draft pick. They drafted often, and Ian Rappaport used to be great at this. They'd go to the guy's hometown, talk to the high school coach. Okay, like what was Devin McCourty before he became Devin McCourty? I always like those stories. I pitched an idea years ago at Huddle. They never went for it. I wish they did, but throw up a billboard in White House, Texas, home of Patrick Mahomes, and just say greatness started here, because they have every single play of Patrick Mahomes' high school footage they own, right?
Yeah, so right.
Go to and just like plant stuff all like all these different towns. There's such a cool like journey story with so many of these athletes, and we should do a better job telling them. And does it get
hard now? Yeah,
I don't know.
Like with so many people being creators and trying to be pro gamers and this and that, does it get hard? Or do we get lost in this flood of stories now to where it's hard to break through?
It's an interesting question. There's definitely content overload, and maybe I can. This kind of leads to the next slide I have here about, or I don't know where I have this about. Let me play this first. This is a good example of storytelling that tells you the utility of the product. So this is I bring this example up. Noah can attest to this in my classes of. Do you remember the Super Bowl a couple of years ago? The Rams, Bengals, Burrow versus Stafford, and every single commercial was something about Bitcoin, right? And it was mostly kind of like, this is the thing that pisses me off with Super Bowl commercials now, because they don't really tell you about the product. They just say, "Hey, here's a random celebrity cameo," and right side of your head, they're like, "Hey, we can't tell you what the utility of this damn thing is, but here's Larry David," But then there was this brilliant Apple Watch commercial in the middle of it, and I'm just gonna play it right here. As soon as this guy stops talking.
I know, right? Yeah, right. I mean, yeah, he said it, here, Jason, right? All about telling the story, all about that background. And I think that's just something. I mean, collegiate esports coaches have a lot to do and a lot going on, but I think it will help them if they understand how to tell the stories about their programs, right? I think that will take some of the burden off of some of the other things they're doing.
Yeah.
And I remember when this commercial first came out, right? And it was, I mean, there are those things, right? I mean, they're just those things that make you stop for a second. And you're like, oh, right.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'll but like, yeah, I mean, that is a perfect example of, of like great storytelling. Grips you right in, right? Playing live 911 calls. But it tells you what the product does and how this changes you. Let me pull it up. I'll just
try to share again and see if it goes through.
Here we go. Gotcha. So, this is a lot of text heavy. Anyone who wants the slides after, I'm happy to share this with you. But
and if you couldn't, for that video and stuff like that, go find it. If it's not playing for you, different things. So it's good.
Years ago at ESPN, the first time I got on the front page of ESPN.com, Wright Thompson, of all people, if you don't know who he is, he is the GOAT of nonfiction storytelling. He's ESPN's home run hitter. One of these guys, he only writes a couple times a year, but when he does, it's tremendous. He just did a new documentary with Mickey Hart about of the Grateful Dead about something with sports science, but it was really interesting. But he just randomly reached out to me. Hey, love your story. And we got this chain going. One day he just randomly emailed me, hey, what's your mailing address? Yeah. Mails me a couple books and with a note, this is what we're trying to do. And this book, Writing for Story, by John Franklin, who's a 2-time Pulitzer Prize winner, longtime writer at the Baltimore Sun, passed recently, I believe. But he outlines if you can't outline your story, you're never going to be able to tell it to its fullest intent. You're not going to be able to do it convincingly. But he outlines this dramatic outline and really simplify your outline down to its absolute essence, and what that does, allowing you to really hone in and focus on the most important relationships that connect the story. So here on the left column, the outline basically is 5 what do you call focus statements, totaling no more than 15 words, and it follows the same pattern: a complication statement, then 3 development statements, and then a resolution statement. And they go one word each: noun, action verb, direct object. And so is not an action verb here, right? So an example that he puts in the book: company fires Joe. That's a complication. 3 developments: depression paralyzes Joe. Joe regains confidence. Joe sues company. Resolution: Joe regains job. That's a very clear outline of where this is all going. And having that North Star allows you to take twists and turns and really get into the nitty gritty, because ultimately we're trying to accomplish these things. So being simpler allows you to focus more on the most important issues. If you can't think this through, right? If you can't think through an outline, you're never going to be able to tell the story to its fullest intent. And the dramatic action that makes your point comes in at the end of each section, and that's where the climaxes belong, right? And the statement should represent an ending, not a beginning. And when you're putting this together, you should have this checklist out. And if it doesn't answer yes to all 3 of these, you don't have a focus statement. So does the verb connote action? Is your main character in the statement? Can you illustrate the event described? And that's a tricky one to answer. I think that's when you have to take your own bias out of it and think objectively.
Right. Like, man, please, right? let's make that a big statement. Yeah. Please take your own bias out of it.
Right. So yeah, if you objectively had no skin in the game and you're looking at this, would you be able to illustrate the event that's being described? That's a tricky one, I think, for a lot of people. But and then I came up with this message here. Again, I came up with this in my classes, trying to figure out a word that could help communicate this easier. But when you're writing because we don't teach brevity enough, I think.
Not at all. Not at all.
Yeah, especially in academia. And I just think this is super important. And so I created 7 rules, and you should hit at least 5 of these qualities. But the reason I ordered it this way, so curious, urgent, personal, conversational, emotional, social. And what I mean by that is is it shareable, right? Social. Will you be willing to socialize this? And simple. But the reason I want to structure this way is because if it doesn't have this first quality, curious, none of these other 6 things matter. Not in the least bit.
Absolutely.
It has to feed the curiosity loop, especially now with the way that social media's algorithm is working, where you really want to prioritize share rate, and we'll get into more on that in a second. But you got to be able to feed curiosity, and there's a way to do it in tight space. Brevity matters, pace matters, right? So I'll go to this next slide here. A little more about the curiosity loop. And I bring up this example. BJ, did you watch Better Call Saul at all?
A little bit. I never ended up finishing it, but I did watch the first few episodes.
Oh, so you understand this, right? So I don't want to spoil it for anybody who hasn't watched Breaking Bad, but this is a prequel to setting up how Saul Goodman became Saul Goodman, but there is flash forwards to the events after Breaking Bad. And so each season opens up with a black and white flash forward to Saul under an assumed identity. This guy, Gene Takovich, who's supposed to be this unassuming manager at a Cinnabon at a mall in Omaha. And but we open up, we see him. He's cagey. He's pacing kind of nervously. He's kind of keeping a watchful eye. And it makes it clear this guy might be in danger. And so each season you have this lingering over you, how close is Gene to danger as they then go back to the events preceding Breaking Bad of how he became this Saul Goodman persona. That's where this is going. How close is Gene going to end up being to danger as we go here, right? And so that sets the table. Setting the table this way with a curious question allows you to then kind of build your racetrack, your course there, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think of Inception. Have you seen Inception, BJ?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, of course, right?
Yeah.
Wonderful, awesome flick. One of Nolan's best. And it's a really complicated plot, right? It's got a lot of subplots to it. It goes really is a lot of things to take in, but you are able to stay paying attention. You don't feel lost watching the movie because the overarching theme is, does Leo get home? Does Leonardo DiCaprio get home? And the way we end that is just absolutely brilliant. But you're watching this and you can follow along because you have the overarching theme. Pacing and timing matter big time. I'm gonna use another analogy here of pro wrestling. When you're watching a pro wrestling match, right, and the announcing crew is everything in this stuff, right? Right. You think back to Jim Ross and Jerry Lawler and the way they played off each other to build up the mystique around like a villain character, like an Undertaker or Kane, right? The action, it's not constant, right?
Mm-hmm.
You'll see, Steve Austin slam The Rock, and then they're slow to get up, and they're kind of plodding, waiting for the next move, and all while you're hearing the announcers building them up. Here he comes, he's coming now. What's he going to do next, right? If there was action constantly, you're giving them no time to build you up, right? And so pacing and timing matters. If you're too fast, if you're too fast, you're going to lose the audience. If you're too slow, you're going to bore them. But pacing and timing is everything. And so when you're thinking about this curiosity loop and how to get people curious, that takes them through this racetrack you're building, this course. So a couple prompts I like to use to think about this. What do you know to be true that most people disagree with? And to me, this is the start of a really good challenge. And I think that the best stuff you see on social media are stuff that challenges you about the way you think about something. What is the second right answer? I find that creativity comes after we establish the obvious. And divergent thinking is so important to creative process and how you innovate. So just try to think about, after you've established the obvious, what is the second right answer to this problem? And then Stephen King, I always say, if you want to get into marketing, the best book you'll ever read on marketing copywriting is actually Stephen King on writing, or any Stephen King book, really.
My wife has read that one. My wife, being an English teacher and writer and things like that, that's one of her favorite books.
Right? She knows, and you'll get more out of that than any actual book about how to marketing copyright. I swear to you. But one of his favorite prompts is what if. A lot of his best stories started with a what if. The example used in the book is Salem's Lot. What if vampires suddenly descended on a small town in Maine, right? And then the fourth point here is it shareable? Again, would this interest me if I wasn't involved? Would I want to share this with my friends? And again, that's a hard one to think about objectively, because we all are in love with our own work.
As you say, Gunslinger, Dark Tower.
Yeah, right. So
we got that thing.
Is it shareable? So
do you think so? With collegiate esports, or these people, maybe these coaches, directors trying to grow these programs or get word out there, do we have an example of like a good what if for like a program to maybe, every university, right? Number one, you've got your unique niche as a university. Everybody does. Every university is different. So if you don't know what it is, find it and see if you can, turn a story around your esports program with that. But have you thought about that? Like if it was Endicott or, with some of these, with your program, if you were trying to reach a wider audience and grow some of this?
I don't know. It's a great question. I kind of think about it. We're obviously not as resourced as other programs. God, I wish I had $1 million budget like some of these other programs out west.
Gosh, right.
Oh my goodness. My what if is usually like, what if we figure out a way to do this anyways? With like what if we're like the A team? Just putting something.
It's the challenge. You've been challenged. People like esports is never going to be sustainable. It's never going to take off. And we're like, but what if we could do it?
Right. So that would be my challenge probably. And for programs that face similar funding issues. And when I say funding, again, our administration is on board with this. I want to make that very clear. Our administration fully supports this stuff. They're bought in. There was a lot of work done before I got here to get people to buy in on this stuff. They believe in it. So I want to make that clear. But for programs that have budget issues, have funding issues, what if you did it anyways? Or what if, I absolutely need this device to this. Well, what if you were to do it in spite of? What if it was something else that could. So I think when you're up against resources, that's where creativity tends to come in, because creativity ultimately, it's not about contrarian jolts of wisdom. What a lot of people will think. It's about finding a way to achieve your goal no matter what conditions are in front of you. Yeah. Right. That's why when I say, vision versus delusion, a vision is, hey, let's examine the ingredients we have here in the kitchen and figure out a way to put a unique twist on a recipe that we all like. Delusion is, if only I had Ginsu knives, I'd be a great chef.
Right.
So that would be my what if challenge to
I tell people, what if we all didn't buy the wildly overpriced Alienware computers for our esports arenas? What if we partnered with local computer stores and custom builders to develop an esports ecosystem within our local communities and create, an economy out of it?
Well, what if we did this what if, right? So I'll go back to one of my first slides here. So these uniforms, kind of one of the things I like about not answering to athletics, and we're actually under the School of Sports Science here, which is a unique arrangement. But we don't have to necessarily go to their Adidas supplier for merch, for uniforms. So this company out in Michigan, Moneyball Sportswear, they designed a lot of high school uniforms. I had reached out to them because they had done some cool collaborations with some Boston City League basketball teams around here about a decade ago. And I was like, hey, do you guys do esports uniforms? And they said, no, not really. But, I'm like, well, it's it's very similar to a soccer kit, and so, we can work with that. And they designed, I don't know if you can see the design here, but it's where the gulls, right? Seagulls. So you have the silhouette of like a flock of seagulls flying in formation and the beach waves. And I thought this was so rad when they mocked it up for us. And again, what if you didn't have to do some boring Adidas stuff? What if you found someone else who could do something that pops? So that's one example there of figuring out.
There you go. Jason wants your slides afterwards.
Jason, hit me up, brother. I'm an open book. And then probably the last thing I'll probably get into here about shareability, because if you, as you see now, like Instagram prioritizes shares,
right.
Sharing content, it keeps you in the app longer. It also fuels more interest, like how many people are sharing stuff in their group chats, on iMessage, right? So, but not all. This is where the rubber hits the road, because not just because something has a good share rate doesn't mean it's shareable. I just want to pull up an example of good and bad. I'm going to call up my buddy Devin LaPlume from All Systems Go in Worcester here. Hope he doesn't mind. He won't.
Devin, we need to talk again anyways.
Yeah. Hope he doesn't mind me sunshining this, but I think they have a really interesting marketing strategy over there, where they don't do really out-of-home marketing. They're more focused on influencers and creators. And so Devin's setup is pretty cool. They have a lot of gang PCs, and then they have a bar. They have a ghost kitchen for DoorDash stuff. They have a tattoo parlor. It's a cool spot, and it's right in one of the central arteries of the nightlife in Worcester, right off Shrewsbury Street, which has a lot of kind of trendy bars and steakhouses and whatnot. And they invited this I would call micro influencer account, Tasting Twosome. I was familiar with her content before. Like, she goes to like cool breweries around the area, cool theme bars, and just does like these quick 10-15 second like tours.
Yeah.
You see it highlighted here in yellow. That's 71,000 shares to 55,000 likes. So that is 71,000 people, presumably, sharing this in the DMs, texting their buddies, what have you. And it's a good shout. New gaming bar in Mass. Who wouldn't love to check out a cool gaming bar? Like look at the lights. Right. So that's a good share. A bad share. And I don't mean to call it my former friends at the Patriots. I think they're one of the best social teams in the NFL.
They got an okay amount of likes. We're just talking shares here, guys. It's okay.
Yeah. But okay, look, what a great concept. Jacoby Brissett's travel takes, right? Who doesn't have a good travel take of like essentials? Okay, but like phone charger, shoes, headphones, wallet, tote bag. Okay, like that tells me nothing. You know, like if I were to say like, oh, I can't go anywhere without my Patagonia duffel backpack, right?
Yeah, right.
I can't go anywhere without my my AirPods Pro. Like
what's in the toiletry bag? That's what I want to know.
Right, exactly. Like kind of take it a layer deeper. Yeah. This got almost 4,000 shares. But if you read the comments, every single one of them was like, oh, this is boring. Oh, wow, this is a dud. So it got shared for the wrong reasons. So you still have to put out a good product, right? Just because it's got a good share rate doesn't mean it's worthy of being shared, right? So I just wanted to call that out as an example. And again,
do you think with colleges, right? Is there a way for them? I mean, obviously, you never know that half your students could be on socials and be influencers, and you would never know it, right? Unless you wait and talk to them. But is there a way that they could, highlight some of this or do a better job connecting through socials? And everybody does highlights on Twitter, X, right? But like I feel like those don't actually, it's like a news highlight versus a real connected story.
Yeah, and so let me just take a minute about the value of micro influencers. And I think when
I'm with you on that, by the way.
Yeah, we're talking about your social media account that has, usually defined as less than 100,000. I'll rub it to like 10,000. Okay. Yep. And at Huddle, actually, this was always interesting. One year when we did our annual Blitz webinar, a high school coach in Orlando had more live viewers than Steve Sarkisian, head coach at University of Texas, which was like, holy cow, what? But the audience was high school coaches, and they found and so it's easy to deduct that they found the high school coach in Orlando stuff more relatable than whatever stuff Sark was going to throw up there. And he's like the RPO wizard, right? But he's also got 5-star recruits he's working with because he's the head coach of UT. Right. So that was open. But like, so this Tasting Twosome account, if you look at them, like that's like 10,000 followers, but this thing had over 1 million views because of how shareable it was. And a lot of time with those small audiences, they have a higher percentage of their audience that's really dialed into what they're doing. I forget who said it, but you've probably heard this before, BJ. But someone said famously about if you're a musician, you can live comfortably off 1,000 fans that consume every single thing you do. And I think that applies to social media too. If you have
it does.
Yeah. So I would say, don't worry about visibility. Worry about your content hitting the right people. Going viral.
That's why, when it comes to the college esports scene, and that's why I'm so passionate about. When I did my Radical thing, it was an acronym for Research, Awareness, Development, Community, and Leverage. And
I didn't know
Radical. Yeah, that's what Radical is. Yeah. So number one, research, and what I mean by that is it plays into this. Research your region. Where does your college traditionally recruit? What kind of people do they recruit? Are they involved in certain activities, certain majors? You said like STEM there at Endicott, or these things, and understand, right, it's not about how many people you reach, but the amount of people in that section that you actually want to recruit from that you're reaching. And I think that's such a powerful thing that esports directors can tap into.
Absolutely. And so my final thought here, this is a quick one, but I always like to end with this. Every right answer is eventually the wrong one. So what I'm telling you here today in 10 years could be completely irrelevant, right, BJ? But it's not always about who's the smartest person in the room. It's about who is willing to unlearn what they know and learn all over again to get to the next curve. So, I don't pretend to have all the answers. I'm never going to pretend I'm the smartest guy in the room, but I think I do a pretty good job of listening and trying to let the best ideas become the boss of the room and let that guide the conversation. But always be curious, always be inquisitive, always be willing to challenge your own conventions about the way things are done, because eventually it'll be what you do will be the wrong answer.
Right. And I mean, in that fact, it's about the story instead of the author in that case, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So this is my contact information for anybody who's interested. I can drop it in the chat as well. But I'm happy to share these slides with you. Happy to jump on a call, do whatever. My social, it's everything, Twitter, Instagram, etc. It's all B Hall Rights. And here's my number as well. But yeah, feel free to reach out. Always happy to chat. This is something I'm really passionate about. So yeah,
I couldn't tell.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
It's been good to have you, Brendan. And for anybody that look, if you have questions, about marketing, socials, anything like that, definitely reach out to Brendan on how to maybe turn around some of that for your esports program. I'm always happy to answer questions based on what I know as well. And if you're looking for anything on the facilities side, again, contact us with Serendipity Gaming. We want to make sure you enhance your esports spaces for both players and coaches, to be supportive, to be flexible, and to make sure that it's providing for all. But we're happy to partner with the NECC to reach the coaches and to provide some of this content to you guys so that you can further your development as well as you coach and launch these esports programs. But again, thanks everybody for watching. Brendan, it's been great to have you guys, and we'll see you on the next one.
Thank you.